Hello and g'day. Today I'm going to show you how to make a miter corner jig. The reason I made this miter corner jig was for junk journal covers. And I'd like to give credit to YouTuber Neil Cox for the inspiration on how I made my jig. If you're making and covering your own journal covers, having a jig to be able to miter your corners and get them really straight like this is important. You'll be happy if you've got something, a little tool like this that's going to help you out. These are pretty quick to make, and all you need is the same bookboard that you use to make your cover. Example, this bookboard is 1/8 thick that I used to make this cover. This jig is the same bookboard and it's a 1/8 thick piece. So I've got some scrap pieces here and I'm going to cut a 1-inch strip off one of these pieces. So I'm just going to use the width of my ruler because everything's got to be square. So I'm going to put my ruler straight on that edge. It does need to be level, and everything you make here has to be square and it has to be straight. So make sure of that first. So that's straight along there. Get yourself a good sharp blade. This is a Scotch craft knife, and I'm just going to score and then start cutting. Do several passes. Make sure that your blade is straight up and down, not on an angle like that, and not on like that or like that. It's got to be straight up and down. So make sure your cuts are straight. And just keep on passing through that board until it cuts free. So we've got our 1-inch piece here. Now I'm going to cut another 1-inch piece off one of the ends. I'm going to use the width of the ruler again because I know it will be perfectly square. So I'm going to straighten it up on the edge of that end. Same again, I'm going to make sure my cut is perfectly straight up and down. Going through it quite a few times, and I'm taking my time because I've got this very sharp blade. And that can happen. So if that happens, just move your ruler away and start freehanding. And just take it easy until you feel it give away. Now that's let go. I'm going to keep that piece there that can form the bottom part of my jig. So now we've got our little square, and I'm going to cut now from corner to corner, making sure it's absolutely perfect. So I'm just going to do a very light score line first to make sure that I am from corner to corner. See there? Right on that corner and right on that corner. Now once you're happy that you've got that right on the corner, because if you're out a little bit, your jig's going to be out. And just go a bit deeper, trying not to let that ruler slip. Not so much trying even, making sure. See there? And then just hold it with your fingers. Take your time. Keep that blade straight up and down. This cut here is important because this forms a part of your jig. And cut those free. So now we've got what we can call, that's the long cut, and that's a short cut. So the two long cuts need to go together like that. So you can see on that one there, they're the long cuts, they're the short cuts. So those two long cuts have got to go together, but we need to cut the corner off this one here. before I do that, I'm going to mark the center of my jig. So I'm going to get my halfway ruler and I'm just going to find the center. And just so that is, I can place my jig right on the center line. Okay, so I'm going to turn it back around. I'm going to come in really close for this one. So these two pieces have got to come back on here, but I've got to cut some of that corner off like I've done on this one so that it forms a right angle here. Now, I haven't got a maths brain in my body, so I can't do anything other than a right angle. I know a right angle is there and there, so this here is square. I know that. That little area there is a right angle to that. That makes that a square. That's about the limit for me. So on the long line from that corner up, I'm going to measure 1/8 of an inch. So I'm just going to move that aside and I'm going to put my ruler on that area and I'm going to measure up 1/8 of an inch. Then I need to make sure that the angle of this is going to come, I'm going to put that there to keep it straight, and I want to put that in line with that marker. So I'm going to use this little tiny triangle, moving my fingers out of the road, keeping it square at the bottom, and I'm going to just draw a line so that I've got that right angle there to cut. Okay, so if I put that on top of there and making sure this bottom line here is straight with this bottom line here, I'm going to put the two together and that's the angle that I have to cut that tiny, tiny little corner off. So then I'm going to come back. I'm just going to put my knife on that marker and virtually push it down and cut that corner away. So you see there, it's so tiny. But then when I bring back my ruler here and that there, can you see how it just butts up together? That's what we need to achieve. Now doing that, it allows the corner, just say, pretend that's a corner of your book. It allows the corner of your book to sit in there on your right angle. So that's a good way to do it without using math. If you've got a board that can get that angle there for you, use it. But I just do it using my eye and freehand like that, and it works for me every single time. Right, now we need to bring back our holding board. Now this is going to be what we use to hold our jig, and we're going to glue these two pieces on the jig, on the baseboard. I'm going to use the Helmer fabric glue. It's great for sticking paper together. You can use whatever glue you've got as long as it's quite strong, because we need these to stay here forever. The equivalent to this is Fabri-Tac. Where I need to place this on here is that these 2 points here come back together, so the V of that point falls on that center line. Okay, so that's where I'm going to glue it. So I'm going to turn that over, put a little bit of glue. I don't want my glue to ooze out everywhere because I need it to not be in my road for when I start to use it later on. And I'm even going to put a tiny little bit of glue on that cut off point. I'm just going to sit that on there but not press it down. I'm going to turn this piece over as well, glue that up, and miter that back together. And I'm just going to make sure that everything is parallel on the bottom. So that's got to be there, square at the bottom, nice and even. And the V has to fall on that line. So while the glue is still wet, it lets you wiggle it a tiny bit back into place. And that's pretty much it. You don't use this until it properly dries. We can do a quick check and make sure that it stayed on the right angle. And there it is. Perfect. Now I've used this jig here to miter the corners on this cover here, and I used it in my video how to make a paper junk journal cover from scratch. But look how perfect these corners are. Okay, so if you're making a junk journal from scratch, having a jig is perfect. Another thing that Neil mentioned in his video is if you're making a thicker cover or a thinner cover, make a jig to suit the thickness of your cardboard. But for me, I'm just using this 1/8 thickness to make my covers at the moment. Now the way you'd use it, if you wanted to miter the corner of this here to cover over this, you would have it turned up the other way, like you'd turn it over that way. You put the jig with the corner snug onto the edge of your book page. Then you get your craft knife and you follow the edge of that jig and you just cut that corner off. And what it's now done is it's cut a perfect 1/8 space from the corner of my cover to the edge of the decorative paper. So then I can just come along, fold that down, press that over, and miter that corner perfectly. Every corner turns out the same when you use your jig. I'm Donna, thanks for watching and bye for now.